beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they will comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forevermore. Today is a celebration of the life of Sidney Sussman, a beloved husband, father, and grandfather, and a great-grandfather for 1 week, and a friend to many in our community, and an active participant in the life of Temple Bethel for nearly 2 decades. We were all beneficiaries of his quick wit, his insatiable curiosity, especially when it came to people and cultures of communities all around the world, and his commitment to making Temple Bethel a full partner in mutual understanding among peoples of different backgrounds and of performing good works in the city of Charlotte. Sid lived such a full and rich 98 years that we are going to do our best today to capture even a small taste of the mark that he left on so many. When we experience loss, when the balance of our lives, of our universe is thrown off kilter by the absence of such a powerful presence as Sid Sussman, we turn first for perspective to words from our tradition. Tonight begins the festival of Sukkot. It is a time for giving thanks for the great bounty of our harvest, and today we give thanks for the many gifts that Sid gave to us. It is also a time to dwell in the sukkah, a temporary dwelling, and to read from Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes. Both the structure of the sukkah and the words of Ecclesiastes remind us that nothing in our material world is permanent. From the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, L'kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to let go, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. We are also in the season season that stretches from the beginning of the month of Elul, the month of preparation before the high holidays, until the last day of the festival of Sukkot. And it is traditional that each day during this period we read passages from Psalm 27. God is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? God is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should arise against me, even then I will be confident. One thing I have asked of God, one thing do I seek, that I may dwell in God's house all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of God and to dwell in God's temple. For in the time of trouble, you, O God, shall hide me in your dwelling place. Under the cover of your tent you shall hide me. You shall set me upon a rock. Hear, O God, when I cry out. Be gracious to me and answer me. Teach me your way, O God, and lead me on a level path. Wait on the eternal. Be of good courage, and God shall strengthen your heart. And wait on the eternal. The poem entitled Epitaph by Merritt Malloy speaks beautifully of how the spirits of our loved ones can live on after their physical bodies are gone. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking on the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me the most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. When I think about all of Sid's work in bringing respect and understanding to those of so many faiths, this reading, based on the work of Abraham Joshua Heschel, immediately came to mind. No religion is an island. There is no monopoly on holiness. We are all companions of all who revere the Almighty. We rejoice when God's name is praised. No religion is an island. We share in the kinship of humanity, the capacity for compassion. Your hand, O God, is extended to all who seek you. You are near to all who call upon you in truth. Your spirit rests upon all, Jew or Gentile, man or woman, in consonance with their deeds. The creation of one Adam promotes peace. No one can claim my ancestry is nobler than yours. There is no monopoly on holiness. There is no truth without humility. We are diverse in our devotion and commitment. We must unite in working now for the dominion of God. You are near to all who call upon you in truth. There can be disagreement without disrespect. Let us help one another overcome hardness of heart, opening minds to the challenges of faith. Should we hope for each other's failure, or should we pray for each other's welfare? Let mutual concern replace remnants of mutual contempt, as we share the precarious position of being human. Have we not all one God? Are we not all God's children? Let us not be guided by ignorance or disdain. Let lives of holiness illumine all our paths. Your hand, O God, is extended to all who seek you. Let our deeds reflect that we are all created in your image. Let those who revere the Almighty speak to one another, leading everyone to acknowledge the splendor of God. We share one more a very special poem written by Sid's stepdaughter, Susan Allen, will share this with us now.
The Legend of El Cid. Torn between grief and relief, we say goodbye. We remember you as our strongest ally. So many attributes that you exemplify. A complicated man and a hell of a guy. With Sid, smart and funny was an art, because he always led with his heart. Search, but you'll find no counterpart. His wisdom without arrogance set him apart. If you met Sid when he was older, you didn't know the handsome soldier. Tyrone Power's twin, he could smolder and also lend you his shoulder. Did Sid ever fight in his private life, even if the tension could be cut with a knife? He created peace, not drama or strife, whether you were his friend, family, or wife. Sid's rare gift of acceptance was zen. Never holding a grudge, he was the wisest of men. I know he had to practice again and again. His life was proof he had the wisdom of Solomon. We love you, Sid. We miss you, dear. How lucky we were to have you here. Thank you for staying as long as you did and building the legend of El Cid.
You're going to hear many wonderful and, of course, amusing remembrances of Sid from the people who knew him best. But before I call them up, I would just want to share a few words about a man whose quick wit and absolute commitment to understanding between all people made a huge impact on this congregation. Sid was always eager to share what he learned in his travels. It was not unusual for him to corner you to share some new fact or insight that absolutely fascinated him. His own thirst for knowledge was infectious. And he always had that gleam in his eye that you were pretty sure meant that he was up to something. And you likely didn't have to wait very long to find out what it was. Sid and Joan came to Charlotte and Temple Bethel in 1994 from Phoenix and were part of our community for nearly 20 years. Joan shared a story with me. She said that they were not married at the time that they moved here, and marriage was not actually part of the plan when they arrived. But when Sid attempted to put Joan's name on his AAA automobile insurance, the woman helping him asked, "Is that your wife?" "No," Sid replied. "Your fiancée?" "No." "Well," she asked, "what are your intentions?" And Joan said that Sid called her shortly after that conversation to announce, "We're engaged." I have to say, Joan, that working as a hospital chaplain, I see how insurance companies impact profoundly in the lives of many people. But I have to admit, that's a new one. Sid's work with Mecklenburg Ministries and his work in creating our Comparative Religion series, which is still one of our signature events here at Temple Bethel, have made a lasting impact. And for years, Sid was often our first ambassador to other houses of worship, sharing the Jewish religion and traditions with other faith communities around the cities. He played a great hand in making Temple Bethel so prominent in our Charlotte community, and for that, we continue to be so grateful. Today, we will hear remembrances from his wife, Joan, his friend, John Moore, his brother-in-law, Frank Lasky, his son-in-law, John Dove, who will read short letters from Sid's grandsons, who, with their families, are watching this service online from both the West Coast and from Europe. And finally, from his daughter, Gloria Dove.
First, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Coming to honor Sid. He would be thrilled to see you all, and I'm sure would have something to say to everybody. But you're mainly here because 23 years ago, I was getting up to go riding, and Sid said to me, "Are you going to go riding?" And I looked at him and I said, "Find something to do." And he did. He really did. Sid had a long and fascinating life. He grew up in the Bronx. He worked in the family toy store. He was a soda jerk. He hung out at Yankee Stadium. I'm sure you've all heard the story of the kids used to get in free all the time. And one day they came to the stadium gate and the guard said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rupert or whatever, won't let you in, won't let the kids in anymore." And the man came along and he said, "What's going on here?" They told him the story, and he said, "Well, they're coming in with me." It was Babe Ruth. Yes. There are lots of pictures in back, and I hope later you will take a look at them. There are many from his days in the war. As you know, he served in, well, let me go back and say, he spoke German fluently, and he was just assuming he would be sent to Europe, but they sent him to the Pacific. Good match. But he hung out on several islands with the natives. He was a naval intelligence officer, and he fought in Okinawa, on Abamama, and on Tarawa. He was on the same island as Lewis from Unbroken. Yeah, thank you, but he didn't know him, so maybe he knows him now. I don't know. After the war, he married, moved to Danbury, had 2 daughters, Gloria and Joan. Gloria, by the way, has the same birthday as Sid. So every year we have celebrated both birthdays. Years later, he remarried and gained a stepdaughter, Susan. And I really want you to know that the family has always been just fabulous to me. They were welcoming, they were just, made it really easy. I was a little bit concerned, but it was fabulous, and their sons have been fabulous to me, and now I get to be Aunt Joan to Elijah, who is like 1 month old. So that's my present out of that. He loved people. He actually told me he didn't want to go to Patagonia because there weren't enough people. And he preferred to go and see the people and then see the scenery in addition to that. His hobby was making sculpture. He designed the Mecklenburg Ministries Bridge Builder Award, which he eventually won, and we got to keep that in our home for a year. But he also did sculptures that Gloria and John have, the Ritt family has, we have, and he just had an unbelievably creative mind. In addition, one day I would say he really thought out the box. I came home one day and Sid said to me, "This year at Halloween, we are not giving candy." Now, Halloween is like a national holiday in Charlotte. The streets close, nobody does anything but that. Everybody decorates their lawn. I've never seen anything like it, but it is a lot of fun. So I said to him, "I'm not coming to the door if you're not going to give candy." Well, it didn't matter. He did it anyway. The kids came up and he had a little certificate and he said to them, "Would you agree that there are children in this world who need food more than you need candy?" And the kids went, "Yeah." And he had them sign their name on a paper, and then he gave them a contribution to Crisis or McMinn in their names. And on the table outside, there is an article that was written about him and what he did. I think it's a brilliant idea. You know, it was just fabulous. And after the first year, I came to the door too. I have a letter from both a client and a friend of his and indeed a relative, and I want to share this with you. Dear Sidney, I have always had enormous confidence in your abilities as a financial advisor. But when I happened to hear recently that among your clients was numbered James Tobin, I was downright staggered. Handling James Tobin's investments, it comes in here, is comparable to being confessor to the Pope or attorney to Justice Holmes. Here is a man who has just received a Nobel Prize for portfolio theory for arriving at a theory of how and why investments are diversified, and he has selected you to marshal his portfolio. A higher accolade is hard to imagine. Hearing of this client of yours has redoubled my faith in your financial wisdom. But I have one request. When Tobin hands you that $180,000 check drawn on the Bank of Oslo and asks you to look for some sporty young stocks, I'd like to be cut in on the advice. You know, that was his life. That was just what he did. And one other thing, a friend of mine said to him once, Sid, to what do you attribute your long life? Now, I thought he would say what he usually says is, never eat anything green. That was basically how he got to 95 and then on to 98. But he said to her, I'm a very flexible person. And I think that's really true and really it. He lived through some unbelievable times. I am wife number 3. He met all kinds of people. He was in all kinds of situations, and he always came up smiling. So I think that he knew himself very well. Sid was unlike anyone I had ever met. He enriched my life immeasurably. In his last days, I was sitting on his bed, and I was rubbing his shoulders, and I said to him, I love you. I'm here, and you can go anytime you want. And a day later, he was gone. Thank you very much.
It is an honor to be here this morning to remember our friend, Sid Sussman. Sid embraced the Charlotte community, and we were embraced as well. We were enriched by this embrace. We came to know him through his involvement in interfaith, as he brought together those who might have remained apart without his influence. He was an intellectual giant who built bridges wherever he went. As a member of United Religions, a world peace organization, he contributed immeasurably to the Charlotte chapter. Sid became a dear friend, a luncheon buddy, where we always discussed current events, religion, and politics. No subject was off limits, no matter how sensitive. An avid reader with great curiosity, Sid loved to pass forward good information. And as you all know, he could tell a story as well. Sid was comfortable in this world, and he made it a better place. And And Sid loved his family, his pride and Joan, and his children was always present. He loved well those close to him, but also the stranger. To the family, thank you for sharing Sid with us. We're so fortunate that he came into our lives. Shalom.
Good morning. My name is Frank Lasky. I'm Joan's brother. Sidney, of course, was my brother-in-law. I don't have anything really profound to say, but I just have a few memories and stories I'd like to share with you about Sidney that I think typify him. Sidney was irrepressibly good-natured. I used to think that he was a pathological optimist. And I think that's why people liked him so much. I remember often calling his office, and just the tone of his voice was optimistic. It was, "Hello, Sidney Sussman. Year in and year out. Hello, Sidney Sussman." He loved talking to people. Everyone who called him, I mean, you recognize that voice pattern. I remember once he was visiting us in Saratoga, and he wanted to go to the bank to get some cash, but banking hours were over. I said, "Well, there's an ATM." He said, "Well, I don't have an ATM card." I said, "Really? Sidney, you're such a modern man. You need to get an ATM card." He said, "No, I want to go inside. I want to talk to people. I want to see face to face the person that I'm doing business with." So that was Sidney in a nutshell. I think that everyone was aware when they met Sidney of how likable and approachable he was. I also think everyone who knew Sidney knew that Sidney loved women. Women, of course, loved Sidney as well. Obviously, he married 3 times. I don't know, he could have gone on to a 4th and 5th. Anything was possible with Sidney. For his 90th birthday, Joan and Sidney were visiting me. And I went with Sidney in the morning to a local patisserie to get some croissant and some baked goods. And we're standing in line, and there was a very attractive young woman in front of us who I actually knew because she owned a business on Broadway. So I introduced her to Sidney, and I said, "Today is Sidney's birthday." Well, it came time for me to place my order, and I walked up to the front of the line. Sidney's in the back talking with this woman. When I come back, they're in an embrace. And I'm looking, "Sidney, how did you do that?" Well, everyone wanted to embrace Sidney, and Sidney wanted to embrace all people that he met. That was just Sidney's nature. I jokingly asked him, had he seen the movie with Al Pacino, The Scent of a Woman, which he had, of course. And I said, "I'm wondering if they didn't intend for you to play the role that Al Pacino played rather than Al Pacino. Perhaps Al Pacino was your understudy." He got a good laugh out of that. I think that's all I really have to say, that Sidney was infectious and good-natured and liked people. And his optimism, it was rubbed off on one. It was hard to be in a bad mood with Sidney. You know, I might feel grumpy one day and he would call and I'd be complaining about something, and he always had something upbeat and positive to say. So, you know, he was a mentor in a way. He was my brother-in-law, but he was also a mentor. And I was grateful for the time that I had to get to know him. Thank you.
My name is John Dove. I'm Sid's son-in-law, and I'm here to share with you some comments of Sid had 3 grandchildren. In fact, can you imagine in 1992, when he was 92, he took his 3 grandchildren, Max, Michael, and Matthew, on a 10-day trip through the Mayan ruins of Central America. Can you imagine? And it was such an important trip for all of them. They all 3 came back just really glowing from this chance to get to know really close and personal their grandfather. And I'm going to read you a couple of letters of my son Michael and his life partner Jorga Hanasova live in Zvolen, Slovakia, and have for a dozen years. So this is a letter from Michael Dove. Grandpa Sid. Growing up, I had the good fortune of having several positive male role models, among them being my dad, my brother, and my grandpa Sid. These were men who, for me, illustrated a variety of ways one could be a man in this world. Like all of them, Sid was unique. His influence on me is palpable, but difficult to pin down. Though I didn't see him every day, like I did my father and my brother, Sid was nevertheless had a significant presence in my day-to-day. I still find myself imagining how he might react to a given situation. He was himself, a man eminently comfortable in his own skin, a continual source of love and joy, knowledge, humor, and wisdom throughout our lifetimes intertwining, like a book I'd regularly take down from the shelf and browse, always discovering new chapters and footnotes and addendums to old ones. Each new experience in my life established a new connection with Sid, from my time in Vienna, where his favorite music instrument museum became mine, to my discovery of foreign languages, inspired by my grandfather, the lifelong language learner. To travel with Sid was to see the world through his eyes, a world of people to meet and connect with, experiences to be delightfully surprised by, historic paths to retrace, mountains or pyramids to climb. I know Sid will continue to accompany me on my life's journey. I'll continue to be inspired by his confidence, his compassion, his curiosity, his whimsy and his lust for life, his fearlessness in the face of risk, and this despite a deep understanding of the hazards involved in his various ventures, whether it be his globe-spanning travels or the remarkable daring-do of his artistic experiments. To say nothing of his experience at war. Grandpa, yours is an example that I'll always aspire to, that of a life well lived by choice. I remember one story that Sid would often say when he was planning some of these travels to faraway places, even after he was 90, and people would say, why are you, are you concerned about going so far away? What if something happened? And he'd smile wryly, yeah, and what might that be? My second letter is from my son, Matthew Dove, who is the father of Elijah William Dove, and that is Sid's great-grandson, who was born about a week before Sid passed away. Grandpa said, I'm sitting here at my kitchen table, listening to the babbling of my sleeping infant son and contemplating a box of coins. I've had this box since I can remember. It's a Turkish box, inlaid with intricate shapes and patterns in different colored wood, and filled with pennies from all around the world. When I was a boy, my grandfather Sid was like my family's own Indiana Jones. He seemed like he was always returning from some far-off place, and what I'd only read about in a National Geographic. He was brimming with stories and excitement and a deep well of knowledge. Each time he traveled somewhere new, he'd bring back to me some coins, which I'd put in this box he'd given me. This was my treasure chest, not one of great monetary value, but of the possibilities offered those curious enough to seek them out. Who was that stern-looking man in the Norwegian krone? Would 100 Turkish lira buy me a train to Istanbul? Could I call home with 10 Thai satang? I'd probably be lucky if all the coins in that box could buy me a bus ride and a hot dog these days. So I thought when I brought the box from Boston to San Francisco with some of my childhood things. As I was unpacking them, I took a moment to dig through the coins and came up across a large, familiar one that had been there as long as I can remember. It felt heavy in my hand. It turned out to be a 1979 Israeli-Egypt peace treaty medal. As it turned out, among the cruzeros, drachma, pesos, pennies and all along there had been a big, solid gold coin. When my wife and I were planning our wedding, I had this coin melted down to make our rings. It now lives on my finger every day, both as a reminder of my devotion to my wife, Jody Wing Dove, but also as a call from my grandpa Sid to never stop exploring this amazing world that we live in. I will miss him, and I'm sad he won't get to see my greatest adventure yet, but I think he'd be happy to know that he'll live on in our stories and in this box of coins, which someday will be passed on to his great-grandson, Elijah.
Good morning. I'm Gloria Dove, Sid's daughter. Sid Sussman was my father. Many people have talked to me in the past week and more about the fact that my father was a Renaissance man. He was a voracious reader, historian, and storyteller. He remembered dates and names and events that would elude most of us. He was also an artist. My dad was a networker extraordinaire. He made friends wherever he went and loved making connections among his circles of friends. My dad had a passionate commitment to his community and believed in helping people live peacefully among neighbors of diverse religions, races, ethnicities, etc. He delighted in discussing differences and similarities in order to bring people together. When I entered high school in 1959, I already knew how to cook, sew, knit, etc., so I wanted to take shop. My dad asked the high school, and they refused, saying there was a sign on the door of the shop that said no girls. So then he moved on to the Board of Education. They also refused. However, from this, my dad taught me a really important lesson, that we have to stand up for what we believe, even if we fail. My dad maintained a joyful approach to life, believing that each day is a gift. When asked about funeral arrangements, his answer was that he didn't care. He didn't believe in an afterlife. Rather, he believed in the gift of life and felt blessed to be enjoying his later years with his beloved wife, Jo. In memory and in honor of my father, I want to tell a story that he would have liked. Once upon a time, there was a man who lived a very long life. He He worked hard and was well respected. His many interests could fill pages. He was a voracious reader and an historian who could analyze and remember what he read well into his 90s. He took trips far and wide and could regale people with stories from every adventure. Commitment to community and understanding among religions was important to him. However, there was one piece of his life's puzzle that was missing, and it had remained elusive for many decades: true love. Then one day, he met a princess riding on a beautiful dark horse. The princess was very much like the man. She read avidly, had many interests, and loved to travel. They combined their enthusiasm for life and married. And finally, the man had found the missing piece to his puzzle. In addition to all her many talents and zest for life, the princess taught him how to love and how to express that love. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Dad. Rest in peace. Thank you.
We'll take just a few moments for our own silent reflections.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us
Passionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Sidney Sussman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. You are his inheritance. May he rest in peace. Let us all say, Amen. In the prayer books under your seats, you will find Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, ve'alamad yivarach yiruteh ve'amlith malchuteh, v'chayei echon b'nu echon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalav yizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'amelamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kedusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'miran ve'elama v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chaim alina ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. V'osei shalom b'imromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace in the heavens grant peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. As we say together, amen. Family invites everyone to the Levine Social Hall, which will be to your right as you exit the sanctuary, so that you can continue to share with each other all of your wonderful memories of Sid. I will ask you to remain in your places until the family has exited the sanctuary.